Hello everyone and welcome back to English with Kayleigh. In today's video I'm going to be taking a look at another one of Jackie Kay's poems and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at The Underground Baby Case. It's quite a lengthy poem, so I think this will be quite an in-depth analysis, but very useful if you are sitting the A2 Cambridge exam, in which this poem makes an appearance. It is one of the texts that you'll need to analyse. So we've got some guiding questions to think about as we read through the poem. So we want to think about how do each of the sections contribute to the unfolding of the narrative, and what is the reader encouraged to feel about the narrator. So these are two questions we'll go back to at the end. So in this particular poem we see themes of motherhood, childhood, deception and delusion. So before we begin the analysis, I'm just going to read through the poem for you. As I said, it is quite a lengthy poem, but I think it's really important to listen to it and understand it before we get into the analysis. So, The Underground Baby Case. 1. There was a couple of things I wanted to remember. I was in the underground on the Victoria line, a mother and her bag of digestives, disposables, Disprin, possibly, got off. King's Cross, buggy first, then shopping, then the doors closed. We were in like sardines, and I did a terrible thing. I picked up the little boy and held him to my chest. I picked up the little boy and held him to my chest. I said, there, Mummy's here. Don't you worry about a thing. And then I started to sing the song Sixpence and the song Diamond Ring. Ali bally, bee, ali bally, bee. Next stop, I didn't get off. The train flew like a plane. Nobody noticed. Nobody said anything. And he is a black boy, a beautiful black boy, skin like the sea at night. His lips are a blueberry pie. 2. He is my boy now, my boy. In the morning we eat porridge together. He drinks from the yellow cup I bought him. When we go out in the big old-fashioned pram, he pretends he is my washing. At night I make up stories out of things I'm trying to remember. Little Red, Puff Puff, King's horses, her with the dreadful long hair. 3. Today, when Peter had fallen asleep in his little bed in my room, comfier than away in the manger, I slipped out and bought a newspaper for the first time since the day his mother gave him to me, really. She must have wanted me to have him. Perhaps she planned it for weeks, following me about, picked me like you pick a disciple. 4. Baby Kofi missing 6 weeks. A black and white photo. Is that how long it's been? I've kept the picture for Peter, for when he's much older and will understand. I have not watched TV for fear she will appear. Her long ropes of hair. 5. I would arrive at her house. I would take my basket of fruit. Inside, the empty plates at the table, his toys scattered everywhere like memories. I would climb up her hair and uncover her ear. I would whisper, Peter, Peter is all right. Peter loves me. And ever so gently I climbed down, lock by lock, bone by bone, trying to put her together again. 6. There was a couple of things I wanted to remember. Must get nappies. I know. I've forgotten the date my baby was born. Only the day in autumn she died. In the black car on the 8th of October, the windscreen wipers waved like drowning hands. the earth later, soft as a robin's breast, eating my tiny baby up. So a very emotional poem, and now we're going to break it down and look at the stanzas in depth. So first of all, we have the title, The Underground Baby Case. So this is from the collection Severe Gale 8, which was released in 1991. These particular poems are included at the end of one of Kay's most famous works, The Adoption Papers. And the Severe Gale 8 selection, these poems represent a more personal and political commentary of British life in the 1980s and 90s. So we have to look at that in conclusion and in our analysis of the poem within the others in the same collection. So of course we have this underground idea, which does lend itself to, you know, the London Underground or the metro or the subway, but it also gives this connotation of a secret, something that hasn't been brought to the surface. So we see here there were a couple of things I wanted to remember. So this is the first part, and almost just a memory and a reflection. It's quite unsuspecting at this point, very casual, and it's written in the past tense, and we see this euphemistic feeling and wording. We don't suspect anything bad is going to happen at this point. I was in the Underground on the Victoria line, a mother and her bag of digestives, disposables, Disprin possibly, got off. King's Cross, buggy first, then shopping, then the doors closed. And we see here, you know, this listing, which lends itself to the idea that the speaker is very orderly, factual, and very much sticking with reality, and just listing off what she can see, what happened around her. But we also get this kind of dismissive and detached feeling towards the situation and what's going on. And we later find out this is quite representative of the speaker and her view towards what has happened, and her reaction. We were in like sardines, and this kind of standalone stanza here, again, is very casual, and it's the norm when we consider being on the Underground. It is very packed, and the structure here is quite reflective of the meaning. You know, we just have everyone kind of stuffed and shoved into this one carriage on the Underground. And then we see this sentence, and I did a terrible thing. So now we see this dark turn within the story and within the poem. And what we do see here is that the speaker understands and knows what the speaker has done. I picked up the little boy and held him to my chest. I picked up the little boy and held him to my chest. So now in this section, we're seeing this detailing of the abduction and how it happened. And I think the repetition of the line, I picked up the little boy and held him to my chest, I feel even the speaker can understand that somebody would be in disbelief reading it, and that they need to repeat just to show that, yes, this did actually happen. And I say, there, mummy's here, and we start to get this subtle possession taking over within the scenario. Don't you worry about a thing. And then I started to sing the song Sixpence and the song Diamond Ring. We get this beautiful sibilance coming through here. Again, very nursery rhyme-esque, which we see in a lot of Kay's poetry, especially in her children's collections. And we get these soothing sounds coming through. So she is trying to be nurturing and caring for the child. And then we get this nod to a Scottish children's song. It's not 100% correct, so it shows that the speaker, the woman, is maybe inexperienced or hasn't used this song for some time. But we get this nod to Scotland and their dialect and their heritage, which of course links to Kay and her upbringing and the fact that she herself is from Scotland. Next stop, I didn't get off. So here we've got a caesura, and this is where the decision has been made. The train flew like a plane. Get this idea of immigration, of change, of moving somewhere, of changing track and changing decisions in what she's going to do. Nobody noticed, nobody said anything. And I feel as if here the speaker almost can't sense any wrongdoing because nobody has pointed it out to her as something that isn't correct and something she shouldn't do. So she almost feels comfortable and comforted by the fact that other people are not noticing that this is not the right thing to do. And then we get a beautiful description of the baby, and he is a black boy, a beautiful black boy, skin like the sea at night. His lips are a blueberry pie. So again, we've got this beautiful consonants coming through of this B sound. The beauty here is really emphasized. And we get this beautiful simile, skin like the sea at night. We get this imagery of a calm sea and this sibilance again, lending itself to comfort, not only of the child, but also of the woman who's made this decision. His lips are a blueberry pie. You know, we've got a lot of emphasis on colour here, which possibly lends itself to the idea that it's different to her own. It's something that she sees as incredibly beautiful and new and wonderful. Then we move on to part 2 of the narrative within the poem. And now we see time that they've spent together from the first part to the second, and we get, he is my boy now, my boy. So here we see the present tense and this quick possession of the child. In the morning we eat porridge together. He drinks from the yellow cup I bought him. You know, here we see this domesticated routine, very much a normal morning with the mother and child, or parental figure and child, of feeding and eating together. When we go out in the big old-fashioned pram, he pretends he is my washing. And I think the verb pretends here is particularly important. This act of secrecy, of lying. That they are both almost in this together, this lie, and he plays the part also. At night, I make stories out of things I'm trying to remember. So here we get this comparison with the first part of the narrative within the poem, I wanted to remember. And now we have, I'm trying to remember. So does this lend itself to the idea that the speaker has had previous experience with these nursery rhymes? And obviously later on in the poem, we find out, well, yes, there has been a death of her own child. So she's trying to bring back those memories of Little Red, Puff, Puff, King's Horses. So these lovely nursery rhymes and endearing songs that we sing to children. And then we have this almost Volta where we change subjects completely. Her with the dreadful long hair. You know, we've got this demonization of the mother, almost serves as an internal justification for what the speaker has done, to remove the baby, from this demon, from this creature, and to provide for the child. Then we move on to part 3 of the narrative, and in this part of the poem we see, now in real time what is happening, and we get this flurry of delusion and religious imagery coming through in part 3. So today, when Peter had fallen asleep, of course we know Peter to be a biblical name, so the significance of the woman choosing that for her now son, or in her mind what she sees as her son, it's quite important that she's chosen a name with a biblical reference. In his little bed in my room, comfier than away in the manger. Again, we're seeing this biblical reference of Jesus. and sleep and being peaceful. So this lends itself to the idea or the question of, is the woman a Christian? And then we get to see here this kind of delusion coming out. I slipped out and bought a newspaper. Now we have this revelation of insanity. She's left this young baby alone while she's left. And this continues now, this breakdown of her mental stability for the first time since the day his mother gave him to me, really. She must have wanted me to have him. Perhaps she planned it for weeks, following me about, picked me like you pick a disciple. So she's starting to open up, and she's willing to see now the mother's reaction by going to read the newspaper. But she very much feels as if the mother chose her to be this disciple. Again, this religious imagery coming through of someone to follow Jesus and to protect him. Then we move on to part 4. And here we see the newspaper article, and we're immediately met with the title, Baby Kofi Missing 6 Weeks. So here we're introduced to the child's actual name, who's been appropriated as Peter. A black and white photo. Now I didn't make a comment on this, but of course we have this idea here of black and white, which again lends itself to this interracial relationship of having a white mother who has abducted this black child. And then she says, is that how long it's been? And we get this very nonchalant response, oh, okay, yeah, is that how long it's been? That, almost not caring or feeling any signs of remorse or upset for the woman who is now missing her child. I've kept the picture for Peter for when he's much older and will understand. Again, we see this delusion showing through of how can somebody accept and understand that they were taken from their biological mother. I've not watched TV for fear she will appear. We've got this internal rhyme here, fear, appear. There is some worry starting to come through here for the speaker that the world is not this perfect bubble that she's living in with her, now in her mind, her child. And then we have her long ropes of hair. There's very much an ethnicity trigger here, this kind of incorrect terminology. So again, lending itself to the idea that she's very different to the speaker, and of course someone on something that she cannot understand. And then we get to part 5, and this is the ideas of what she would do. We've got this conditional tense of illusion here. I would arrive at her house. I would take my basket of fruit. A very odd phrase, because this is, in Britain anyway, quite a typical, it's very typical to gift somebody who's lost a loved one, some food, or something to help them continue. And this seems like a very delusional response, that she would, go and approach this woman with a basket of fruit. This delusion coming through as if that will make it better. Inside, the empty plates at the table, his toys scattered everywhere like memories. We almost get this reflection of her own experience here, because it's not usually somebody can understand the loss of a loved one, especially the loss of a child, unless they themselves have gone through it. And this fact that memory stands alone here on its own line really emphasizes the hurt and destruction of these feelings. And then we see this, I would climb up her hair. And when I read it, I was thinking about Rapunzel, this woman who's almost trapped within walls, longing for her love, which I feel very much as though the woman who's lost her baby, lost her child, is almost got this feeling of being trapped and wanting her baby to return. And uncover her ear. I would whisper, Peter, Peter is all right. Peter loves me. There's a lot of, the audacity coming through here to feel as if she could approach the woman and say this to her. But there's almost this thing of self-confirmation of the child's imagined identity with this repetition of Peter, Peter. And it may be more so for the speaker to have this confirmation that this child belongs to her. And ever so gently, I'd climb down lock by lock, bone by bone. The speaker really understands the fragility here. And again, is this reflective of her own experience? Trying to put her together again. A nice nod here to the previous parts where we saw the king's horses, and we know that the king's horses couldn't put Humpty Dumpty together again. So they couldn't do it, but she feels confident enough that she can help this woman to be complete again. Again, this delusional response. So we've got all these ideas of fairy tale allusions coming through, this naivety that her words and her reassurance that the child is doing well will be enough, this delusion coming through. And then we have the final part, the final section of the narrative within the poem. And here is when we have this revelation, and we learn about the death of the speaker's own child. There were a couple of things I wanted to remember. We have this cycle again, right back to the very first utterance within the poem and the first stanza. Must get nappies, again, very nonchalant, not really caring and understanding what she's done and the repercussions of it. I know I've forgotten the date my baby was born. Here we get this idea of compartmentalizing and blocking out these traumatic, painful experiences. Only the day in autumn she died. In the black car on the 8th of October, the windscreen wipers waved like drowning hands. Got this consonance of the W sound coming through, and the rain hitting the windscreen, the bleakness, and this idea, this symbolic nature and idea of death. The earth later, soft as a robin's breast, eating my tiny baby up. We get this profound traumatic image coming through, and this personification of the earth taking the child and engulfing them, and this awful idea of them eating them up and taking them away from her, which is exactly what she has now done to somebody else. So if we go back to the questions that I asked at the start, like what is the reader encouraged to feel? Well, we're definitely encouraged to see, the parental psychological decisions here. We do feel sorry and we feel concern for this woman and her mental instability. Now, when we want to look at AO5, when you want to look at different criticisms or different theories, you could definitely use psychoanalysis, looking at displacement, this kind of out of body, out of mind decisions and experiences, and psychopathy also, and this almost lack of empathy that the woman is expressing and experiencing, the speaker. So I do hope that this video has been helpful for you. As I said, it's more of a snapshot of the poem and an analysis of the overall meaning and ideas within it. I will be uploading more of Jackie Kay's poetry, so if this is something that you're studying, please do be sure to like and subscribe, and then you'll be notified of when I have future videos coming out. So I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks guys, bye.